Got it?
That's my son's camera. Everything is my son's. I'm cool. All right. Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome back to the United States again. From where are you guys in Afghanistan? Or not Afghanistan, you're Kuwait, right?
Kuwait.
Okay. Well, I know it's short notice for you guys coming back. You're supposed to go to Afghanistan. My name is Sergeant First Class Marcus Steele, and today's class introduction is tie-dye, which is right here. This is something my son made, my son Max. He made this for me. Talked to some of you just before class. Some awards back in the 80s. A lot of you don't. Has anybody ever been around with anybody that wore stuff like this? Hippie stuff? Right on, sir. The reason I want to talk about tie-dye, well, one of the big reasons is because I actually have something to show. Okay, something my son made. But what I want to talk about today, introduction-wise, is talk about how tie-dye became popular in the United States, the year it started. And I also want to talk about statistics about how it's affected today, tie-dye today, and also about Timothy Leary, who was pretty famous. Probably none of you probably heard of Timothy Leary. I think he was from the New York area, though, where you guys are from. Timothy Leary was, we'll go into him a little bit later. He's dead now. He died in 1996, but he was huge with the tie-dye generation. All right, first let's talk about, I'm sorry, I keep saying we'll talk about how tie-dye became very popular in the United States. Well, to give you a little background, tie-dye has been around for a long, long time. It was huge in Peru, the Caribbean. A lot of the designs we use today is from India and the Arab nations from the past. They used a lot of tie-dye. And like I said, Peru used a lot of it in South America. They used this because it was easy to make. Have you guys ever seen any tie-dye? How you make tie-dye? How they do it? So they tie it up, dip it. It's not a demonstration class, but that way there's never one design that's the same. So it's pretty interesting. And everybody remembers from the day, that's how it became popular was back in the 60s. It was a counter generation, the hippie generation that used to made it very popular because what was everybody wearing in the 60s? Straight shirts and solid colors, and all of a sudden you got these guys running around, with hippie generation, smoking pot and doing drugs, which Timothy Leary comes in. Statistic-wise, I went on Facebook and I found, it was pretty interesting, Tie-Dye Mania distribution fan. It was pretty interesting. They covered a bunch of the countries, and it was out of 335 local fans, 86.6% of them were Americans. And as you know, Facebook's all over the place. It's all over the world. So it kind of tells you where we're looking at drawing. Even from the small percentage here, we're looking at Americans are really hot on it. One of the reasons why is because the fashion's from the 60s. Back in those days, the 60s, it was huge up to the 80s. It died out in the 80s, like we were talking about. It really died out, okay? That's when the stoner movement came in, and, plaid and everything else came out. What were those shirts again? The button-down ones? I can't remember the name of them. It was the stoner, they always wore the stoner shirts all the time. Then in the 90s, it hit again. And since this war has begun, if you notice, tie-dye's come back. Kind of like the 60s generation with the anti-Vietnam. The whole hippie generation come back again. Now they consider themselves the yippies because they're all about money. Another statistic I found, I went to a site, it's called itiedye.com. And I was looking at it, was pretty interesting because they talked about new members coming in. And the last few years, thousands of people have been joining. It started around 2006. July of 2006, they had 24 members in 2006. Now, that was new members at that point, July 2006. And from June of 2011 to June 2013, they've had over almost 2,000 people joining, close to 2,000 people joining per month, this group here. So it's pretty interesting. It tells you it's a growth of tie-dye. People are really interested in it. They're finding that I guess there's some sort of bond with it because it's multicultural. It has nothing to do with one group. Almost every cultural group has some sort of tie-dye designing either shirts or even cupcakes. Have you heard tie-dye cupcakes before? They do those too. So a lot of the hippie generation still with us today, the ideas. One of the things is, the last thing I want to talk about today was, the main point was Timothy Leary. Now, why is he involved? Well, Timothy Leary, one of the things you could always count on, this guy was he was a doctor, he was a psychologist. He was one of the ones that started using drugs for psychology. He was the one who started with LSD, testing out LSD. Of course, he became a big LSD, a huge LSD proponent for society during the 60s. He liked to use it as a psychedelic drug. He used it on prisoners, and he used it to try to cure prisoners at that point. And he was basically under the gun of the federal government and New York State government also at that point. They were always after him. Some famous people that followed his lead were like people like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Grateful Dead.
Ken Kesey.
Yep. Huge following. He was very popular around. He was not just known in the statewide, he was known nationally. And one of the things he used to wear all the time was ragged jeans and tie-dye. When he died, that's what they buried him. And I just wanted to do a quote from Timothy Leary. And there are 3 side effects of acid or LSD. Enhanced long-term memory, decreased short-term memory, and I forget the third. Because he used drugs his whole life. He'd been caught with marijuana, and how they recognized him all the time was because he was that hippie generation with long hair, the tie-dye, the ragged jeans, and he really popularized the whole outfit for the tie-dye generation in America. Popularized it for about 3 or 4 decades until he died. And that was, in conclusion, just like to cover that we covered tie-dye popularity in America when it started. We showed the statistics, and we also covered Timothy Leary and how he really turned the counterculture revolution with the wear of the clothes and the popularity of it. And that would be in my class. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Hope you weren't too bored.
I didn't shut it off yet.
Oh, you haven't?